Hello, readers. This is your host, Charity, the Booktrovert Reader podcast. In this episode, I am doing a kind of a recap of a very popular series by Stephanie Garber, which is Once Upon a Broken Heart. I am recapping book 2, The Ballad of Never After. I fell in love with this book. The first book was great. The second book was amazing. I cannot believe the ending. And I'm so glad that I read this book weeks before the book comes out, the third book. So the third book is coming out on October 24th. And I'm so excited. I have that book on pre-order, so I should be getting that book a few days out. And this episode will be live afterward. You know, if it's been a while since you read the second book, this is the podcast episode for you, just because you can actually kind of get an idea what happened in the last book. So you can go into the third book knowing what's happening and what's happening, and so you're not like kind of asking like what happened, what. Okay, so I'm excited to get into this, to dive into it. There's a lot of things that happen in this book, and I cannot wait to share with you. Just so you know, this will have spoilers in from the book of The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. It will happen throughout. I'm doing a major recap of the second book. So if you haven't read this book, please go and read it first. Then come back to this episode. Also, too, I'll put a link below of me going over the first book in the series with Melissa, another bookstagrammer that I met. We did a big full book review of the first book. Now we're at the second book. I'm excited to do the recap. All right, pausing real quick, and I'm promising we'll get back to it. I love every one of your readers, and I'm in need of your support to help this podcast flourish. Here are the few ways you can help. 1. Subscribe. Subscribing to your favorite platform ensures that you get the latest episodes right away. 2. Rate and review. Leave me a glowing review and rating on your favorite podcast platform of your choice. Your feedback not only is exciting to me, but also helps other fantasy enthusiasts discover this podcast. 3. Share. Spread the word of Booktrovert Reader podcast. Share these episodes on social media and recommend this book podcast to your friends. Sharing this podcast creates an amazing community of listeners just like you. Make sure to check out the description below to find all my links to my social media. 4. Support through subscriptions. Your support helps me continue making content. In the description below, you will find how to support me on this podcast. By subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing, it will help Booktrovert Reader podcast get in front of other readers like you. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and make sure to tell me your favorite fantasy book. All right, readers, back to the episode. So where we left off, we come back to Evangeline. This is when she just found out that Apollo's not dead, but he's actually just in a deep sleep. And she's doing everything she can to figure out what happened to him, you know, and to bring him back. But the problem is that nobody knows how to bring him back from this deep sleep. She's also trying to hide the fact that he's in this deep sleep, that he's alive and not really dead, because everyone thinks that Evangeline, is the princess, is mourning his death still, and they don't want to create unrest. And plus, he's extremely vulnerable to be killed in that deep sleep. So she's trying to keep it quiet and not to let anyone know anything about it. We're also left off where Jax is still trying to convince Evangeline to open up the Valerie Arch, and she's adamantly refusing to do that regardless. You know, Jack's like, well, you'll get rid of me if you decide to open it anyways. And she's like, no, heck no, I'm not going to do that for you. She's even going to Lala, which is, she's another fate, and she's even saying, no, I can't help you. I don't know how to help you to bring Apollo back from this deep slumber. So some of my favorite memories from the first book to the second book, the vampires. I did not expect the vampires to show up in a book like this. This is like a fairy tale type of book. And when the vampires decided to show up, I was kind of shocked about that, just because it was just such a different element that popped up out of nowhere. I was very curious as to why that showed up. And it definitely made its appearance in the second book. The tension between Evangeline and Jax is a torturous one. If you remember from Jax is a cursed fate. If he kisses anyone but his true love, they will die. Evangeline made a deal with him a long time ago. I think she has like this one kiss left over from the deal that she made with Jax a long time ago. that's still unresolved, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what about that last kiss? I wonder if that's going to play a part in the third book. Anyways, the tension between Jax and Evangeline is a long drawn out one, slow burn one that is definitely a reoccurring theme in the second one, because if you remember in the first book, one of the princesses that sent Evangeline up to the north was his Jack's one true love. Donatella flat out rejected this guy, Jax. Now, for sure, if he kisses anybody, it will definitely kill that person. Evangeline and Jax during this whole throughout are kind of strongly attracted to one another, but they are also at the same time like fighting one another, because at the end of the first book, Jax really betrayed Evangeline to trick her into opening the arch, and she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So now we are in this time where I think there's a lot of feelings coming from both ends, but they're both like at each other's throats just because of betrayal and who Jax is. Jax is going to do whatever he can to do to accomplish his task. And Evangeline, she's a sunny side up. She's always believing in the best in people, and which always causes her to get into situations that is not best for her. I didn't like it so much in the first book, but in the second book, I like Jax calling Evangeline Little Fox. It's kind of Ballad of, the Archer and the Fox is playing a huge part in the second book, just because of things that I will be going over soon. I love that. And then, of course, page 374, which said the end, like as if that is the end, which I'm going to go over as well, because that was a big plot twist for me. And I loved it at the end, and I'm all for it. The dynamic and the tension that's between Jax and Evangeline, like, I don't know. I'm always been that person that he would make those subtle touches to Evangeline, It's noticeable, but she questions if he really did touch her or was by accident. And there's a lot of encounters where there was a lot more physical touch in this scenario. So it's like bringing this angst that I'm like, oh my gosh, please just get together, for crying out loud. You're meant to be. Okay, so the character evolution. So there's some characters that were really behind the scenes that got put back, and then there's some people that are popping up, but they're kind of brought back in the shadows, and it makes me wonder if we're going to be seeing them again as well. Now, to kind of give a touch base on the whole thing that Jax is after is the Valerie Arch, and with the Valerie Arch, only one person can open the arch, which is a prophesy, which is a rose-haired girl, can be the only one to open it, and it's supposed to hold on to a special treasure or something like that. It seems like Jax is going after. It's interesting because there's a mystery behind it. We don't know if there is, when you're starting the book, you don't know what this arch contains and why are people after it. We did get a brief glimpse of Marisol, which is the stepsister who is technically a witch in the storyline of the first book, but we only see her once in the whole story, and then she just kind of disappears. So I'm kind of wondering if she's going to make her appearance in the third book, or this whole theory of this whole second book happened because of her, because she seems to be always in a form of jealousy, in a fit of jealousy. So I'm just saying. So we got Lala, who is the curse of the unwed bride. She is constantly being left at the altar on the day of her wedding. So she puts up a front, and Evangeline was the one who told Lala that Apollo's really alive, but, he's under a curse. Can you help him? And she's like, no, I can't. But as the story goes forward, this is the spoiler. So if you don't want any spoilers, this is your own fault at this point. As I was saying, so Lala is the one who gave Apollo the mirror curse and the Archer and the Fox curse. She was responsible for that because she wants Evangeline to open the arch too. But we don't know why, though. It wasn't really revealed as to why she wanted Evangeline to open the arch, but there was a point in time where Lala did get to talk to Evangeline and told her, like, look, I know my methods were awful, but my intentions were good, because there's a reason behind why I want to open this arch. And I think it has to do with the fact that the reason why she became a cursed fate in the first place was because she fell in love with somebody that was taken away from her. And I think she's trying to get that back. I'm kind of curious as to what she thought she can gain from opening the Valerie Arch. We got Lucian, which is Evangeline's first love. The reason why she got into the situation with Jax in the first place was Lucian. Now, I don't know how he technically ended up in the position in the first place, but he became Apollo's heir to that kingdom. Nobody knows it. He's recognized as Prince Lucian. But, Lucas turned into a vampire. He was sick. He turned into a vampire. And, he's come back into Evangeline's life. I think he plays more of a part in the story than that is let on, but he's only playing small parts. We're only seeing small parts that he's participating in. And I think in the third book, we're going to figure out how involved Lucian was in the book and in the series. I find it very interesting that he was showing up in a lot of in key pivotal times in the story. Like, they went to a ball at Slaughterhouse and he was there. He showed up to the castle's the heir. He was there. And there was a time where her life was threatened. He showed up again to go back to Chaos to get Apollo to save Evangeline. So I'm kind of curious that how much Luke has involved with the whole story. And I think he might be involved with Chaos, for example. So we got Chaos. Okay. Now, the big plot twist that happened was that Chaos was actually Castor Merrywood, which Castor is the son of the Valors. It turns out there's this big plot line of understanding Jack's past. What I understand and could remember, this is the part I wish I could remember a little bit more about the details of books, is that there was the Merrywood Three. There was Castor, there was Lyric, and there was the Archer. Okay, so there was this point where Aurora was part of that group, and she was supposed to marry Vengeance, Slaughterwood, but she didn't want to, so she ran away. And I think in a fit of passion of vengeance, Vengeance went to kill the whole Merrywood family to save Castor's life, because I think he was stabbed and was on the brink of death, but they saved him by turning him into a vampire. He was very self-destructive, killing members of the Vengeance family or Vengeance's family and things like that in the state of revenge. And to prevent him from doing that, they put a helmet over his face so he wouldn't feed on any more people. So I found it very interesting that Castor was alive this whole time. Jax knew about it, everything. So it's very interesting. Chaos, or Castor, does have an vested interest in the Valerie Arch because it is a way for him to be able to take that helmet off. And if you remember about that helmet, he's going to have this thirst that he'll never be able to quench. So him being able to do that would be able to quench that thirst. So, of course, we got Jax. He's got gold hair instead of blue. He's more involved in the story now that I simply love. And he has this touch her or you die a lot of times. And he's always saving Evangeline from the brink of death. But at the same time, he's always putting up these walls to prevent her from getting close. So I think he's just protecting himself because he knows that technically, because he's already kissed his one true love, that she is not his one true love. And he's just going to kill her if he were to pursue those feelings. So I think him being a butthole throughout the whole story is his way of saying that I love you, but I'm going to protect you no matter what. And it's so heartbreaking because they have a strong attraction for one another, and that they have really great chemistry in this book. But because of his past being rejected by his one true love and things like that is so heart-wrenching. So I am kind of wondering how the third book is going to address him, the one true love kiss, of him doing that. So we also find out that he was part of the Merrywood group and that he was an archer as well. Archer and the Fox moment. So I'm kind of curious about who was his fox. Who did he went out of his way to kill because of that? So I'm very interested in seeing more backstory on that, or if it's in the Caraval series, I want to read it. So the theme that happens is kind of said a few times is that in ballads there is no happy endings. Yes, this book did not technically end on a happy ending. It ended in a cliffhanger, and I'm so upset, but I'm so excited to find out the next book. And the Archer and the Fox is, of course, a big theme. So Apollo is very if you remember, he was cursed to fall in love with Evangeline, and right before the end of the first book, the curse was broken, but he was also put in a deep sleep. And then there was this curse that was put on him about the mirror curse, which anything that happens to Apollo happens to Evangeline. So if he gets cut, she gets cut. So there was this danger of if someone kills Apollo, it's going to kill Evangeline. And then, of course, the Archer and the Fox curse was put on Apollo as well. So what that means was that he will not rest until he kills his fox, which is Evangeline. That was the main theme of the whole story of her, Evangeline just always running away, avoiding Apollo to be killed. And then also there were so many situations where Apollo gets hurt and Evangeline does as well. So, and then Jax is constantly like trying to save her from that situation without having to kill Apollo, because if he kills Apollo, then he kills Evangeline. With this curse being put on Apollo, it forced Evangeline to go, okay, if there's a backdoor way to break this curse off of Apollo, which is technically her husband, she's like, okay, I'll go and open the Valerie Arch. Well, she did discover the Arch. She was able to do it with her blood, and she has like magic in her blood, but she realized that there's 4 stones that she has to get, and she learns that from Chaos. The stones are luck, truth, mirth, and youth. She found out that all 4 stones have magic capabilities. When they're all put together, they have this like these intense magical force and some people said, or some people that Evangeline has gone to said that this creates destructive power, and Jax would say no, it's not the truth, and all this stuff. So there's a lot of like unanswered questions as to these stones. So we found out that Chaos has one of the stones, which is the stone of luck. He's gotten that from a previous key. And what that means is there was actually another girl that was almost very similar to Evangeline that was prophesied to, like, oh, let me open the door, like her open the doors, exactly how Evangeline's gone through it, but a lot sooner. But when she got the stone for luck to Chaos, she unfortunately died getting the stones. So it's interesting how there's a repeat of the situation until someone fulfilled that prophecy and opened the Valerie Arch. Now Evangeline had to go find the other 3 stones. So the other 3 stones were actually found throughout different places. Truth was actually found in Glendora Slaughterwood's grave. I don't know how Glendora actually got the stone. Maybe it was said, but she actually had to like go in the crypt, open the tomb and get the stone from there. That's where Luke, the vampire, actually showed up to help her. So that's why I find it very interesting, like I said, that he was showing up in key pivotal times of her looking for those stones and her trying to survive, right? So Mirth was found in the Marywood Manor. So if you're familiar with the story, Evangeline had to be rushed to Marywood Manor by Jax. Jax had avoided that place for so long, but was willing to take her there because Apollo, I guess, was captured and was being whipped. And because of him being whipped, she was too. With Jax taking her to Marywood Manor, it protected the curses from happening. So it actually helped her block that curse, that was that mirror curse, and help her to heal and recover. This mysterious power was in this manor, and it turned out that it was the Mirth stone, the very last stone she needed to find in the manor. It was powering the whole manor, so she was able to take that And then, of course, a plot twist was, or of course, this book has plenty of plot twists. The Stone Youth, before she found the Mars Stone, she found the Stone Youth, but that actually happened in a moral way that conflicted with Evangeline's morals. There was Petra. She was actually considered another key. She had the rose gold hair, same as Evangeline, but what she did was she kept the Stone Youth because Chaos took the other stone from her. So she's like, I wanted to keep my youth and everything like that. And she held on to the stone. But to get that stone, Evangeline had to kill her because Petra was trying to kill the other one, to kill Evangeline. So that was against Evangeline's morals because she's never really killed. Even though it was in self-defense, she still felt really bad about it for that happening. To take a little break, some of the favorite quotes of this book, just to understand the dynamic of Jackson and Evangeline, was, don't pretend you never hurt me in order to manipulate me. You just said that if I didn't agree to open the Valerie Arch, I really start to hate you. I hurt everyone, little fox, but you have to be alive to hate me. His eyes iced over. I do not want you dead, and I'll kill anyone who tries. He stalks from the room. And then page 293 says, she looked up in unreadable eyes as he lowered her into the bed. Do you still think of me as just a tool? Jax frowned. I try not to think of you at all. So I love, you just see the push and pull between Jackson and Evangeline happening quite a bit in this book. And I am loving every moment of it. So some of the mysteries and unanswered questions I have about this book is so many. At the very end, Paulo's curse is obviously lifted the second time around, right? He was able to steal Evangeline's memories to the point where she had no idea who Jack was and all that stuff. She has no idea how she ended up there. I'm like, first off, how did he get those powers in the first place to wipe all those memories like that? And then what's his intention for making her forget everything and then coming back to her when she forgot everything and says, hey, I'm your husband and everything is okay? I'm just like, what's his motivations? Another one is, I get Lala's intentions was to open the Valerie Arch, but it was to save her one true love. But what exactly in it is really what she was going after, and why does she have to resort to intense measures to get Evangeline to open the arch, when I think in reality, I think if Lala went to Evangeline, she could have convinced her, because they were friends, to open it, but she went a very drastic route. So when the arch was open, the surprising thing was it wasn't like a treasure or anything special, but it was actually the Merrywood family asleep in that arch, and Chaos was actually trying to be reunited with his family. So I want to know, like, why did they put themselves in a deep slumber and lock themselves in? And one place said that they were actually prisoners. So why would they consider prisoners if that was the case? So I want to know more about that. So Apollo was at the closer to the end of the book was a tortured, to the point, like Evangeline life was really threatened and endangered because of Apollo being tortured and the mirror curse reflecting the same experience. Who is doing the torturing? Don't think he was necessarily doing it to himself, but what if someone on the other end was controlling it? I am wondering who was doing that to him in the first place. In that same situation, Jax had to tell Luke, go get Chaos and have Chaos go save Apollo to prevent him from getting hurt anymore. Chaos saved him, but at the very end, Apollo shows up with the curse broken, and I'm kind of wondering if Chaos has something to do with Apollo doing, taking memories and things like that, but we'll see. Just go over some highlights that happen, so you're kind of ready to go into that third book. I like this quote. It's just one night, he said softly. In the morning, you can forget it. You can go back to pretending you don't like me, and I can pretend that I don't care. But for tonight, let me pretend you're mine. I love that moment, because I think it was like the first time that Jax was really super honest with Evangeline, but Evangeline was kind of suspicious that he was only being that truthful because of the Mirth Stone being in that Marywood Manor. So it was finally like nice to finally see him speak his truth. So Evangeline did use the Truth Stone to get Jax to tell her why he wanted to open the arch. And apparently, the four stones, when put together, can actually allow a person to go back in time. And this power can only be used once in the lifetime of that stone. And he says he wanted not really the arch, but the stone's power. He wanted to go back in time to go see to see Donatella, his first love. And I think he wanted to reverse something that happened in there, so he had a second chance at his first love. And if you remember a little bit in the first book about the fates, they will do what they're cursed to do forever, and they're always going to yearn for it. So I think he was kind of finding, like, he wanted to go back to his first love so he can kind of end his misery in that, just wanting that for his kiss, things like that. So he was going to just go back and just reverse that whole situation. And if he did that, it will actually alter time. And there was a chance that Evangeline may never know Jax in that situation. So he kept telling her throughout, like, you're just going to forget me anyways. And that was going to be the case if he were to go back in time to reverse that situation. So I'm just going to go beeline quickly at the very end. So when you go into the third book, you kind of have an idea what happened. So Evangeline and Chaos, they went to the Valerie Arch of Wolf Hall, and they leave Jax behind. Evangeline uses the magic of the stones to open the arch, and Chaos enters it. And Evangeline finally admits that she loves Jax and plans to cure his curse. And I think that's the time that she finally goes, "Oh, I know there was a true love, but there is a chance at a true love again, and I really do love him, so I want to tell him that." Last minute, right? She follows Chaos in the arch, which turns out to be a prison for the Valor family, who is locked inside. The Valor family wakes up, and Honora, which is the mother, hugs Chaos, who turns out to be Castor Valor, and Castor is super hungry and starts feeding off Evangeline. Jack shows up and tries to take Evangeline away, but she is already dead. That I was so shocked about that ending. My jaw dropped. And Stephanie Garber had the audacity to put in the next page, like, the end, when in Evangeline point of view it went blank, and the end. And I'm just like, this can't be the end. This is only the second book. But this such an amazing way this happened. Let's continue on. Jax uses the stone to go back in time to meet with Evangeline before all this happens. Chaos was, I think he was like, Honora was like, don't do it. You can't, changing fate would have a consequence. So this, but, and if you remember, Jax wanted to go back in time to fix what happened with him and Donatella, but I think he was so, like, devastated about Evangeline dying in his arms because of Chaos that he's like, you know what? He decided to go back in time to save Evangeline instead. Uses that one chance to do that. And so this time Jax went with Chaos and Evangeline, and Jax tried to, like, negate the situation by bringing someone to be fed off of, but Chaos was like, no, don't do it. I can control myself. I'll be fine. But Chaos was so consumed with hunger that he just went straight to the first human he can find. Before it all happened, Evangeline actually walked in the arch, find the family and things like that, but Jax on the second time around prevented her from going in, and she did eventually walked away. So as she was leaving, she actually runs into Apollo, and he seems fine, he's doing good, and tells her that it's all Jack's fault, and he steals Evangeline's memories, every single one of them, to the point where she had no clue where she was or what she was doing there. Apollo comes back, and he's like, he's safe, and he's her husband. And I thought that was a sneaky little turd, him. So just that really quick rundown at the very end. I I'm excited for the third book to come out. I've never been so excited for a book. I've never been this excited over Sarah J. Maas books, but I'm excited about this one just because I think it's so well done, and it's also a very easy read. So one thing I would say for recommendations, I had someone ask me whether they should read the Care of a Hall series before they read Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I would say yes and no. uh, Stephanie Garber does an amazing job of writing a series in the same world without you having to read another series for context. So you can actually read it no problem. But this second book really dives into Jack's past, especially with Donatella. And if you remember, Donatella is a big component in the Carva Hall series. She's one of the sisters. So if you want more backstory as to what happened between Jax and Donatella, reading the Carva Hall series to get to this series is not super imperative to the story, but just gives you a lot of answers and context as to what happened between the two of them. Now, I feel like it's a big mystery because I haven't read the second or third book yet of the Carva Hall series. I'm just familiar with Donatella in the Carva Hall. I can still read this no problem, not needing to know what exactly happened to understand that this was a big thing. But I'm a snoop and I want to know now. So I will definitely be reading the second and third book, probably before I read a third book. Let's see if I can do that. So my final thoughts on the book is now it's a curse for true love. And the third book goes 2 villains, 1 girl, a deadly battle for happily ever after. Evangeline Fox ventured to the magnificent north in search of her happy ending. And it seems as if she has it. She's married to a handsome prince and lives in a legendary castle. But Evangeline has no idea of the devastating price she paid for these fairy tale. She doesn't know what she has lost, and her husband is determined to make sure she never finds out. But first she must kill Jax, the Prince of Hearts. Blood will be shed, hearts will be stolen, and true love will be put to a test, a curse for true love. Oh, so I'm wondering if Jax is going to fight for Evangeline. And what is Apollo going to do to prevent for them to getting together? And I'm wondering if she's going to get her memories back. And of course, I wonder if the curse will be broken from Jax so they can be together. Will Stephanie Garber break my heart and kind of leave a tragic closing ending, because this is considered a trilogy and I'm like so worried about this, how she's going to end this series. So let me know what you think, what your theories are. I want to know how you think the third book is going to play out. Definitely let me know in Instagram or TikTok and just tell me what your thoughts are. Thank you for joining me with the recap of the Ballad of Never After. Looking forward to going over the third book with you. Catch you later, readers. Thank you, readers, for listening to my podcast on fantasy books. I hope you're enjoying the content and finding it helpful in discovering new books to read. If you have a moment, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at BookTrovertReader to stay updated on new episodes and other book-related content. Thank you again for your support and happy reading.